Hi, everyone. Sorry if I look in this direction. My cat is sitting on my piano. Okay, so today I figured because of Avengers Endgame coming out, there might be a few people who want to get into comic books. So today I am here to show you how to go about doing that, if that sounds correct. One of the main reasons I wanted to make this video, except for more people possibly wanting to get into comic books, is because I remember about 3 years ago or so when I wanted to get into comic books, I found that it was kind of hard to know where to start. And I'm hoping that, now that I've kind of gotten started and I have sort of my favorite corner of the Marvel Universe, I can help guide others, because comics really are just an amazing thing and they're just great. So I'm going to be splitting this video up into two sections. The first section is going to be how to get into comics in general, and I'm going to be talking about sort of where you would go to read comics, because unfortunately they aren't really as accessible as, regular textbooks are. So I'll have resources for that, and just kind of maybe I'll even include a little list to get you started of recommendations. The second section of this video is going to be how to get into DC and Marvel Comics specifically, and I'm giving them their own category because both companies have established universes where almost every single one of their comics fit into that universe, and that can make it pretty complicated, especially because those companies have been around for so long and they have just such a great amount of reboots, heroes between them, different series, different teams, etc. That just makes it, like I said, a lot more complicated than getting into, for example, indie comics. Okay, so on to the first section, how to get into comics in general. Now, as I said, comic books are not as accessible as other books. And so the ways that you can read them are a little bit limited. So first I'm going to go over the free resources you can use to read comics, and then the ones you actually have to pay for. One way to read comics for free is to go to your local library and see if they have any. I've found that some unfortunately do not, but if you reach out to the people who run your library, maybe if you email them, if you write a letter, and you openly express interest in getting comic books, then it's very likely that they will then get comic books and then your library will have them. And if your library does have comics, it's just, libraries are so beneficial. If you can support them and you can go and check out comic books for free, like, not only are you benefiting, but local libraries are benefiting, so it's probably the best way to read comics for free. The second way that you can read comic books for free is actually tied into the library thing. It's one of my favorite apps. It's an app called Hoopla. Now, Hoopla, as far as I know, is only available in America, but I'm not quite sure. How Hoopla works is you sign up using your library card, and then you have access to, literally just hundreds of books, comic books. They even have, like, music albums, they have movies, they have TV shows, and it's just such a great service. And really quick, I'm not sponsored. I kind of feel like I'm in a commercial right now, but I'm not. I just really love Hoopla. You can check out up to 3 things a month, which, if you're checking out 3 whole volumes, which are usually 5 issues each, that's like 15 comic book issues that you're able to read for free per month, and you're not pirating, so that's great, I guess. I'm not gonna say much about pirating, because that's a debate for another day, but it's out there. So now that we've finished with the free ways to read comic books, we're going to go into how to actually purchase comic books, and mostly how to purchase them for cheap. Ultimately, and kind of obviously, one of the best ways to purchase your comic books is just to go to a comic book store. Here you can either buy just single issue physical copies, you can buy what's called trade paperbacks, which are collections of single issues, usually a whole volume, which is 5 to 6 issues usually. Or you can set up a pull list. A pull list essentially is a list of comics that you would like to buy each month, and then the comic book store orders them for you. The thing is, if you go to comic book stores, or if you order on Amazon, comic books tend to be expensive. For example, Marvel's single issue physical comics are $4 each, and I don't know about you, but that tends to add up pretty quickly. So if you can't afford these comic books, or at least you can't afford those prices, here's some cheap ways that you can buy them instead. One way to save is to buy what are called trade paperbacks. They're still pretty pricey. It really depends on which series you're buying and how many issues the trade paperback is. For example, this 4-issue trade paperback of The Unstoppable Wasp by Jeremy Whitley is $13. Now, that's kind of a lot, but if you add up how much it would have cost to get all 4 of those issues individually, you're still saving a couple of bucks. So it's definitely cheaper if you go out and buy these trade paperbacks instead. But the thing is, like I said, trade paperbacks are still expensive. So what do you do if you can't afford that? Well, my trick is to buy these comics used. There are a lot of places you can buy used comic books, but the two that I often use are eBay and Amazon. Now, eBay is kind of self-explanatory. You just search up a comic you want and you see if it's on there. Usually it is, because that place is crazy awesome. As for Amazon, what you do is you look up the comic that you want, and then you click on it, you scroll down, and usually there are more options, and there's a lot of cheaper options too, where you can buy a used comic from sellers through Amazon. Okay, so I'm in editing, and I forgot to mention that Marvel Comics and DC Comics both have an app where you can read and buy their comics, and there's also an app called Comixology, which is shown in a second here, where you can buy comics, manga, and more that aren't just from Marvel. There's also Image, etc. As for actually getting into the comics, trying to figure out what you want to read, it's pretty straightforward. It's just like TV shows, books. First, you should probably start by getting recommendations from other people. This won't be too hard because there's a lot of people that read comic books out there. And once you have a pretty solid list of recommendations to go through, look through each one, kind of see if they fit your tastes, or maybe even look at the ones that you don't think would fit your taste so that you can kind of get a new experience. If you don't want to wait to get recommendations, one really easy thing to do is just Google good comics and try and find the most popular comic books and read those. A lot of people will tell you not to do that because there's a lot of hidden gems out there, but personally it's just kind of easier to check out the most popular ones first and then gradually branch out over time. On to the second part of the video. I don't know, that was such a weird transition. But on to the second part of the video, how to get into Marvel and DC comics. I personally am only into Marvel comics because, you know, one massive universe is already a lot for a girl like me to handle, but I feel like my experience and my tips can be used for DC comics as well. Now, if you clicked on this video, you might be like how I once was, and you might just be a big fan of the movies, whether it be Marvel or DC, and you want to branch out into the comics, and that's great because being a fan of the movies and then wanting to get into the comics is actually a pretty great place to start already. Or maybe you haven't watched the movies and you're just trying to get into the comics. That's cool too. But in either case, let me sum up the process for you. Intimidating. Getting into Marvel and DC comics can be really scary because, as I've said, they both have their own universe. They both have their own rules, characters, reboots, and it's just so much to track down. So I found that when I first tried to get into comics, I was just very intimidated and very unsure because I had absolutely no idea where to start, and I was just like, I don't even know what this is at this point. But here's the thing, if you're also feeling intimidated or unsure, don't let that stop you, okay? Because it does get better once you kind of get a sense of where you're at, where you want to be, what you want to read, etc. Like, it does get better, trust me. Probably one of my biggest suggestions is finding a character you really, really like, whether it be just Googling cool superheroes or your favorite character from the movies and latching onto them and not letting go. Since Marvel and DC are like an entire sea of content, you're gonna need to latch onto that favorite character as if it's like a life vest. I mean, you're gonna really have to hang on to them because that's gonna be your starting point. Once you read a few comics featuring your favorite hero or your favorite team, then you can kind of start to branch out by either going after more series featuring that favorite hero or by going after series featuring each individual hero, and then getting more recommendations, or at least getting a sense of that kind of character that you like and finding others like them. For example, if you liked Wolverine, then check out his solo series first, and then maybe go read some X-Men. If you liked X-Men, then look at other X-Men besides Wolverine and then check them out, if you get what I'm saying. If you follow that tip about, latching on and then branching out, but you're still lost, one thing I suggest is looking at both the Marvel and DC reading guides, because I know that they both have one. These are essentially just a huge list of their top series and their top characters, and then you can really just go through there and cherry pick which ones you're interested in and which ones you aren't, and then start reading from there. One really, really important tip for getting into comics from these two companies is to not feel like you have to read everything. A lot of people, when they get into comics, have this sense of urgency, like they have to know everything, like they have to tackle every single series that their favorite character has been in, but really, don't feel like that. Don't try and pressure yourself to be like that. One of the best things you can do is just calm down, have fun, and read a comic and then branch out from there. If there's anything you don't know, if there's anything from a crazy series that is from the 1960s that you're never gonna read, or even is from a recent series that you don't want to read, just go on like Wikipedia and read up some background info like I said, and then you're all set. But don't ever feel like you have to read every comic book out there. The main thing about this is that you have fun and you find stuff that you really like and just have a nice time. Beyond that, I don't really have many tips. To save time, I'm not going to go over a list of my favorite comics because I have a problem where I like a lot of things all at once, and it would take like 11 minutes just to tell you my favorite comics. So I'll probably put a list in the description below. And if you liked this video, that's great. I hope it helped you out. And goodbye. Yeah.